missed it, what the point systems are. It's out of 33, you guys already saw that. Number one's worth 2 points, just have to multiply, get the right number on that, and make sure you have it all labeled and whatnot. Okay, you take your hourly rate times 40, you're gonna get $358 even. That should be pretty easy to kind of guess what those numbers are, because 4 times 8 is about 32. So you're in that $300 range, so 32, so 350 makes sense to me. You know, you're above $320 with 4 times 8. But that's your hours worked, so that was kind of the first one. That was pretty straightforward. Number 2, now we're getting a little more complicated. So now we're taking the $7.15 you're making per hour times 40-hour week times 50 weeks a year, because I told you we had a 2-week vacation period. So that total is $14,300 a year. And that should make sense. Just because you're getting paid $7 an hour, and you're working every day for a full year, you're getting some serious money on that. And that's, again, gross pay, no taxes coming out. Okay? Number 3, this one that a lot of people messed up on. It was the borrowing thing. Because you have to put the time, when you're in the morning, you always put the time that's closer to noon on top. That's what I always warn you of. Okay? So the 11 goes on the top, 7:45 on the bottom. Okay? You have to borrow from the 11, making that a 10, and then you bring over a 6 to the next column, so it's 1060. And then I'll have to borrow from the 6, making it a 5, and then this is a 10, because if I borrow from the minutes, you would just bring over a 1. So that's 10. 10 minus 5 is 5, 5 minus 4 is 1, 10 minus 7 is 3. A lot of people forgot to borrow, or they forgot to subtract, so they kept putting 4 here, so they did 11 minus 7. It's 10 minus 7 because you borrowed 1 hour. Okay, next, in the afternoon. How I normally do this is I put the later afternoon, like the later time, on top, the noon period on the bottom. Now you can switch it around where you could add military time by adding a 12 to the 4:30. You get 16:30, which is fine, that's military time, and you can subtract, but I had to borrow from the minutes, making this a 10. So 10 minus 5 is 5, 2 minus 1 is 1, and then 4 minus 0 is 4. Now why I put a 0 here and not noon? If you're at noon, that's 0 o'clock. So then that's the way of defeating it if you're not using military time, like 1200, or you're going 1600, that type of thing. So that was the kind of the rule I taught you. Then the goal is to add these two together. Well, it's pretty easy. 15 plus 15 is 30, 4 plus 3 is 7. You had to give me a total. A lot of people forgot to do the total. I want the total hours. Okay? All right, number 4. On the first page, Roberto is earning $6.50 an hour. He's working 48 hours. That means he's working overtime. So you got to calculate your overtime pay. Overtime pay is time and a half. They say it in the directions. Use time and a half. So time and a half times 6.50 an hour is $9.75 an hour. That's your overtime. He works 8 hours overtime from Monday through Friday. So 8 times the $9.75 is this is his overtime pay. This is his normal 40-hour pay. He worked a Sunday for 8 hours. Sunday is double pay. So 6 times 2 is 13. So this is your Sunday pay. You have to add the 3 together. The most common mistake people make is they calculate what time and a half is, but then they never calculate how much money you just earned during that time period. So it's $9.75 an hour. You worked for 8 hours overtime. Okay. So that was a common mistake people were making. They were adding like $9.75 plus that thing. That's not how you do it. Okay. But this is your total hours, or it's total wages for that, you know, the holiday and whatnot. Okay? All right. 5. Fred is airport employee. He's getting $5.15 an hour. He's making in an 8-hour shift, every 8 hours, I was kind of warning you of this, every 8 hours he's making $195. You can do that 5 times in a 40-hour week. This 5 times 8 is 40, so you can get 5 times as many tips. So 5 times the $195 in tips, because you get that tips multiple times over that week, and you're earning, you know, $5.15 for a 40-hour week. So you have to calculate what your tip is, what your normal pay is, and you add them together and you get $1,181. The most common mistake people made, they forgot to calculate the tip multiple times to get up to 40 hours. During a normal shift, he's making $195 in tips. And I said that was recurring every 8 hours. Okay, that's what I said in class. 6, you have so many items. These are not hours worked. These are items produced. So you have 10, 11, 9, 8, 12, that's 50 items you're producing. You take it times how much you're getting paid per item, and this is your paycheck for that week, or whatever it is. I think it's a week. Yeah, it's 1 week. So you're getting $243 that week. Okay? All right, number 7. Bi-monthly means you're getting 6 paychecks. Every 2 months you get a paycheck, so that's 6 paychecks a year. Bi-monthly every 2 months. Okay? You have to take the 16,000 times 6, you get 98 grand. 98 grand in that 12-month period because you have the 6-time paychecks. Okay? Total commission. This is where a lot of people went wrong. Your commission, you have to take the .032. That's your commission. You have to move the decimal over 2 spots. Multiply that on your price you're getting. Okay? All done now. So you're multiplying that on your price you're getting, and then this is your total of what your commission is. It's not very much. Okay? 3% on a $28,000 car is about $1,000. It's close. It's 900. Then you have to add that to your salary earned, and this is your total that you made maybe over that week. This is pretty normal for car sales. I'm not joking. It's usually really low percents, but you're making pretty good money each week if you can make a sale. You know, pretty expensive. Okay, now again, think about this. We were talking about this in class a lot. Commission on like Red Power farm equipment, it's like 30% commission. So you can get way more money doing that. You don't need a degree to do that. You just need social skills and be able to sell stuff. So that's pretty cool. Okay, but there you go. There's your total. The most common mistake people made, they had the decimal in the wrong spot. 3%, they kept using 3.2. You're not going to be making 100 grand. I'm just telling you that. Selling one car for $20,000. Gross pay. You had to add up all your deductions. All these deductions, I put a line to gross pay. All these deductions added up was $217. You had to subtract the deductions from your gross wages, your gross pay. And this gives you the net pay. You're making about $300 net paycheck. Okay, because I kind of warned you, it's about 30%. That's about right. Questions at all about taxes, deductions, anything like that? Okay, you saw the scores. You can see all the points. You all done? Oh, she let you bring it in. Usually she just takes it from you. She took yours out. Take it. Good test.
Oh, I just gave it to you.
Oh, did?
Yeah.
Oh, didn't even, I just totally forgot. Thanks. Didn't remember. You handed it to me 2
I thought
seconds
you
ago.
asked her, she said take it back, I didn't ask her.
Alright. Okay. Questions on any of the problems? I'm going to walk around. I want those back. Mine, you always have the option of retaking. Always. Every single test at one time. It will be a new test, so just make up new numbers. That's all I do. But you can choose to retake. It doesn't matter the score. It doesn't matter if you got an A-, if you got an F. If you get an F, though, you have to retake it. You're forced to. That's not my rule. That's a school district rule. You are not allowed to just take the fail grade. So that means you have to set up a time to come in here and talk with me before or after school. Yes, before or after school. And or I take your senior study hall. And that's what you do it. Okay? If you want to take it during your study hall, that's fine, but I'll put you in my little room. Okay, now take these back. Just make sure you have them out, please. Thank you. And again, just set up a time with me. We go over the problems you missed. We figure out why you missed it. We try to give you a couple example problems. It's pretty painless. And you always get the better out of the 2 test scores. So it's a no-risk gamble if you wish to retake because you want to get that, that better grade. That's why I do it. All right, perfect. Okay, right now you just need your notes out. I have not put the test in the grade book yet. I was waiting for everyone to get done with it today. It'll be in today, so I know a lot of you can check. That'll be in today. So, all right. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to take a few notes, just a few, on the next section. The goal today is to intro the next section. It's not to go any crazy in depth. It's just to talk about what the next section is going to bring, because we are bumping to a different chapter. I said we bounce around a lot. We're going to chapter 4 next, not chapter 2. We're bouncing around to make sense of all this stuff. And then today is just the intro. Talk about what we're going into, give you kind of an idea today. And then tomorrow we'll kind of go more in depth. So let's come get the lights on, please. Thank you. All right. So let me get rid of this, we don't need this right now. Okay, the goal today is to intro chapter 4. Okay, what chapter 4 is all about, so section 4.1, it's based on rent. So that's this first section. So we're going to be talking about rent, mortgage, talking about leasing homes, condos. We're going to be talking about that. So we talked about salaries, how much you can make a year. Now you got to worry about where you're going to live at when you're in that, when you get that paycheck. Okay. So chapter 4. So the overall chapter is about managing a home. Managing a household. Well, the big thing about the household itself is to actually talk about, like, what does it cost? Real, actual cost when you're going to be renting, buying a home for the first time, or leasing, I guess, which is basically the same as renting, but shorter terms. Okay. All right. The goal today was just to talk about just the basics. Okay. Now, obviously, rent is kind of one of those things that a lot of people do when they're young. Okay, it's a good thing to go through for the first time so you can appreciate your first home. But again, I want to talk about pitfalls, but the goal is just intro today, right? So rent. Rent is a continual pay to stay in temporary housing. Again, notice, temporary is the key word. It's temporary. You can be evicted depending on who your landlord is. Now let's talk about that. Landlord. That is the person who owns, has the rights, has the deeds to the actual property, is the property owner. This is something that is super important that you just need to know today. The landlord owns that home. You don't. Anything that happens to that home is your liability to replace it unless it's in the contract. This is the scariest part about renting. Okay, I rented for many years. I rented in Ames, rented in Clear Lake, then eventually I bought a home here, rented in Ventura for a while actually. The landlord makes or breaks the rental deal. And this is the hardest part for new property owners. Your landlord can make it rough on you to live there, or they can be the easiest person to get along with. And it all depends on their personality. You really have to get a feel for them when you're first initially making contact about the rental property itself. The reason why is that the landlord, when they make up a contract, you need to have an adult, or if you have a lawyer by that point, I wouldn't expect you to, but you need to have them go through that rental, that contract you're going to sign. Because maybe, in college towns, you have a lease or a rent that is set for a certain time frame. So you have to rent for 2 years, right? Or maybe it's 18 months, maybe it's 1 year perfectly. You need to check those little things because you can't get out of it. So once you sign that contract, you're stuck paying that pay for that many months. And there could be laws in that contract that says you can't sublease it. Sublease, let's talk about that. So you're renting a property down in Ames or Iowa City or in Cedar Falls, you're going to UNI or something. A sublease is something that students will do when they know they're not going to live there over the summer. You rented the place for the 9 months you went to college, but now you're going to come home, right? You're not going to stay in Ames for the summer. You're going to come back home and live here with your parents, or whoever you want to live with, I guess. And what you'll do is you sublease, quote unquote, right? That means you basically have somebody else take over your payments and stay at that property. Okay, it could be contractual. You can make up a contract that they have to pay. The problem is your landlord can decide whether you can legally do that or not. Okay? And usually in a college town, they do not allow you to sublease. That's a usual. There are some landlords that will, because they just want that continual paycheck to be coming. Okay? Some landlords are like, no, you can't sublease it. I agreed for you to rent that property. Nobody else can be in there but you, other than, visitors, but they're not going to be living there permanently. Okay, so that sublease could be off the thing. And if you break that, let's say the landlord catches somebody else living there that wasn't wasn't the original rental agreement. You had two people sign on the agreement, because usually everyone that's living there has to be signed on that contract. Somebody else is now living with you. Now, the landlord holds you legally responsible, and now they can up your fee, and you have to pay it. Because maybe it's in the contract that if somebody else lives there, you're paid doubles or triples, because they're gonna adjust it to how many people are living there. That's why I said that landlord can make or break that agreement. So you need to read every bylaw. They might not allow pets. They may have you pay 2 months up front before you can start living there. So 2 months worth of rent, then you start living there and you have to pay that month you're in that part. So it's almost 3 payments you're making, okay? So it's one of those things like you need to think about that landlord can make or break it. If that landlord isn't happy with the way you're making payments, isn't happy with the agreement, maybe you're not keeping the property clean, maybe you're not taking care of it, maybe it's just, they just don't like you personally, they can evict you with no reason or rhyme to do it. They can legally boot you out, lock the door on you, and then you can have the police department come and help you get your stuff out of there, because they can lock you out of your apartment, because it's their place that they own, you subleased it. They just have to contact the authorities that they're going to evict you, give you a certain 30-day notice, and they can boot you out. 30 days, usually that's normal, okay? An owner, like a landlord, can legally walk into your apartment when you're not there and go through your stuff, because it's their place. They can do it. You need to be aware of that. They can go through your stuff. You need to be cautious of who you're renting from. You need to be cautious that they don't have cameras in the place. I'm not joking. It happens to see what you're doing, okay? Because they want to make sure there's not, mischievous stuff happening there. That's illegal for them to videotape you, but they can walk in without notifying you, because it is their place. They can check the place, they can check. It may be against the rental agreement that you paint the walls or you install things. You can't, sometimes they don't allow you to have a telephone company come in and install stuff. You have to get an agreement from your landlord first, because you're gonna be drilling holes through the walls. These are little things that you don't think about that can get you in legal trouble, because it's not your place. You're renting it. Just to give you an idea, okay, I rented from Ames. That was in 2004 or 5. That's when I was in Iowa State, and rent was expensive back then. I can't even imagine what it is now. It was $600 a month per person living in the apartment. So we had 2 people living there. So that landlord was making $1,200 off of us for an apartment that was not very big. Okay, so every person that lived there was 4 rooms in the apartment, which is pretty big. But I thought it was big, but it wasn't compared to others. But it was $600 per person. No, you cannot have pets. Any form of damage, like scuff floor, scrape on the wall, you lost your rent that you paid, that upfront rental, where it's kind of like a deposit, you lost that instantly. So my roommate had a cat, and we lost her deposit instantly. The landlord showed up and said, hey, you can't have cats in here, it's in the contract. In fact, you just forfeited your down payment. So I lost $1,200 because we had to pay 2 months in advance. So that was an expensive cat. But yeah, those are things you have to think about. And I couldn't get out of the contract. I had to pay it for 12 months, even though I wasn't in school over the summer. I had to pay all the way through the summer, so I had to think about that. Those are little things. You could actually buy a property for less than what I was paying in rent. That's something you need to think about. Maybe you don't want to rent a place, you want to go buy it. Go get a mortgage through a bank, and we'll talk about that. Mortgage is a loan. Go buy a property and invest in that property, because you can live there, it's yours. And the thing about people that don't realize is, when you want to sell a place you're buying, you buy it really cheap, you fix it up, you can sell it. You can sell it for more money than you paid for it, so you can make money in the long run. The reason why people rent is temporary. That's the key word, it's temporary. Purchasing a home, it's not really permanent, it's just, sometimes it's cheaper. Here's the idea. I was renting here in Clear Lake when I first started teaching. Renting in Clear Lake, renting in Ventura for a while. It was cheaper buying a house in Garner than it was renting in Clear Lake at the time. And the house is 3-4 times the size of the rental apartment. I could own a home instead of renting, paying less money. And I had a home, I had a garage, I had everything. Sometimes your rentals don't come with garages. Some rentals, they require you to take care of all your gas, electric, entertainment, like that, so you take care of yourself. Sometimes you have to mow it. If you rent from a condo, you might have to pay a fee to that condo because they have somebody that mows the lawns. And that fee that you pay every month is for those people, those service people that take care of the lawn for you. That's kind of nice when you have something like that, you don't have to worry about it. Those are like little things you don't think about when you start renting. Especially if you're renting a really big home, old home. It may be super inefficient on heating and cooling. So you'd be paying a ton of money to heat, cool the house on top of the rent you're paying. In college towns, usually gas, water, and internet are taken care of. That's part of the rent. That's awesome. You don't have to worry about it. It's one check right to that one person, they take care of it all. But when it goes out, that's a pain in the butt. Because now you gotta call your landlord, they don't wanna talk to you, but you gotta get yourself fixed. So they have to take care of it. If there's any damage to the house that you didn't cause, maybe it was flooding, that you didn't cause, it was just rain, like Garner had a bunch of rain last week, right? They have to take care of it, you don't. That's awesome. You don't have to pay anything. Because that's not anything that you caused. So those are like little things. But again, the landlord makes or breaks it. Maybe you have a really bad landlord, okay? That's something you want to be cautious of when you go through that interview process. It is totally fine when you're going through that process where you're trying to find a rental and you go meet them face to face for the first time. You want to see the contract that they have, and yes, they should have a contract. You want to copy the contract, and you want a copy of the names of people who previously lived there. That is totally within your legal rights to ask that. They may not give it to you, but you can ask for it. Because you should contact them to see how the landlord is. Are they around a lot? Is things broken that you don't know of? Especially those last people that moved out, maybe they broke the washing and dryer and they didn't tell anybody. You need to know that ahead of time so that you don't get charged. And you should always go through the house with your landlord to make sure that you're pointing out things that are broken or that need repair when you're going through that agreement process. Because nothing's worse than getting there, the actual washer dryer is broken and a landlord doesn't even know that, and they're gonna charge you later for it. Something you gotta check. You always have to check that type of stuff. I know it's scary, but one of those things, like, it's on your own, it could be super low pay, but yeah, that's something you gotta think about. This is what we're going into, right? The goal is to talk about what rent is, the goal is to talk about a mortgage, how to find it, how to go get one, what are the monthly payments, how are they charging you for it, that type of thing. Now, I still want you at this point to still have that career in mind. You know, in that first chapter, a long time ago, when we first started chapter 1, we talked about you had to pick a career you're kind of interested in. Maybe you were interested in it. That I wanted you to figure out what your pay is or your yearly annual salary is. Maybe you get paid per hour, maybe you get paid per year, like contract. I still want you to have that when you come in here next time. You probably maybe have it, because I think you had to put it in like a Google Doc. I think we had you put it in one. If you hadn't already, maybe you want to get one, okay? Because we're going to start comparing rent, especially like this area versus Ventura versus Clear Lake, maybe to Fort City. I'm going to bring in some numbers here in the next couple days, and I want us to compare what your salary is compared to what they want to charge in rent. And we're going to start comparing, is it even feasible that you can live there? Because there's like magic numbers you can type in that will tell you if you should live there or not. Okay, does everyone kind of understand what we're going into the next couple days? So have your career in mind, have that price still when you come in here next time. Okay? All right, we're done for today. Pretty easy. Bye-bye.
I know.
Took coffee on that,
Oh, that's great.
huh? Good.